Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to discuss how the customer experience at Costco, particularly their ID and receipt checks, can serve as a model for creating an effective interview process. Let's get into it. All right, Alex, can you elaborate a bit more on what you observed at Costco and how you see it translating into the interview process?
Yeah. So I went to Costco on a Saturday, which is, if you're a member of Costco, you know, that's like the craziest, busiest day of the week to go visit. And I noticed that a really interesting kind of phenomenon with how they check the Costco IDs. And then, so basically, let me just rehash it really quick. As you might know, when you walk up to a Costco, they check for a Costco card. They don't look at your picture. They just want to see something that looks like a Costco card for you to get in. Once you present that, you go in your merry way, you make your way through all the aisles and things like that. You pick up the things that you want to buy and some things that maybe you didn't know you wanted to buy when you went in. And then when you get in line to buy your items, if you go to self-checkout, they check your Costco card to make sure it's you before you make a purchase. And then also if you do the regular checkout, then they scan your ID and make sure that it's you in order to buy stuff. So that's your second gate, let's call it. And then your third gate is when you leave the store, there's somebody at the exit that is checking your receipt and then all the items in your cart to make sure that they match up. What I think is really interesting about this is that it's designed to maximize the sales of a Costco, this experience. So Costco could have you checking your IDs when you enter in terms of the same level of, okay, is this picture match, et cetera. Think about it like checking IDs at a nightclub, but they don't do it that way because they want to get you into the Costco, getting ready to spend money. I think they're recognizing that there's a correlation between the level of, let's call it like energy, psychological energy that you're bringing into the store and, or enthusiasm that you're bringing in the store and how much resistance you'll deal with. Let me pause there and let's break it up. Let's go from there.
All right, Alex, got it. So to summarize, you notice that Costco has three main checkpoints: checking IDs at the entrance, verifying IDs during checkout, and matching receipts to purchases at the exit. And these processes are designed to maximize sales while maintaining a smooth customer experience. Now, let's tie this back to the interview process. How do you see these stages at Costco correlating with setting up an effective interview process?
I think the core thing is that if Costco checked your Costco card and made sure that the pictures match, if they did that before every customer came into the store, they would have a massive line outside the doors of people waiting to get into Costco. And what would happen is that people would see the line and then they would not even park. They would just drive off, or other people would get in line and go, you know what, this is taking too long. I'm going to leave. So what Costco does is they basically just they give a minimum level of screening right at the very beginning to get people into the store. So the equivalent for a recruiting process would be your initial phone screen. How do you make a Costco ID card easy in order to maximize like getting people in? So I think like if we use the phone screen, the initial phone screen as the example on this, I think that it's basically asking like, hey, do you meet our qualifications or not? That's basically it. And so allowing the candidate to self report that they meet the qualifications, that's really all you need to do. And what that does is it gets you, what it allows you to do is you get way more candidates into your pipeline. And the consequence of that is that you don't lose candidates that weren't willing to wait. In other words, candidates that encounter a lot of resistance early on in the candidate experience just bail, especially ones that have options.
That makes a ton of sense, Alex. The first step is like Costco's initial ID check. It's minimal and quick, just enough to ensure the person meets the basic qualifications to get in the door. For the interview process, this would be a simple phone screen where you allow candidates to self-report their qualifications. This way, you keep the entry barrier low and get more candidates into the pipeline, making sure you don't lose potentially good candidates who don't want to deal with a cumbersome initial process. So how about the second stage? How do you see the second Costco checkpoint where they verify your ID during the actual purchase fitting into the interview process?
Yeah. So right before you check out, they need to scan your Costco card and make sure that you are the person using the card, right? What happened there is basically the clients or the customers have come through the Costco and picked out the things that they want. And now they're ready for a more intense verification. That slows the process down a little bit. Whenever you go to Costco, chances are you're going to have a line. But because you've already picked out your stuff, you're willing to hang out in a little bit longer line. You're willing to tolerate a little bit more discomfort or inconvenience because, hey, you're going to get what you want soon enough. So Well, I think the way that correlates to an interview process is that you want your candidates before you ask them to subject themselves to like intensive questioning or any kind of inconvenience in the process, a little bit of friction. You want to make sure that they're bought in on what they're going to get for tolerating that friction. For example, if you want a candidate to talk a little bit more in depth about some uncomfortable potential questions, then what you need to do is build up their enthusiasm for what they're going to get on the other side of those questions. And I think Costco does a great job of that, kind of staging out the friction based on how bought in, so to speak, the customers are.
Absolutely, Alex. So, just like Costco, the second stage in the interview process should involve a bit more scrutiny, but only after the candidate is already invested. At this point, the candidate has seen the potential value of the position and is more willing to endure a more detailed and possibly intensive part of the process. This could involve in depth interviews or technical assessments. The key is to make sure candidates are excited about the opportunity before asking them to jump through more hoops. Now, how about the final stage where Costco checks your receipt and items at the exit? How does that align with the final steps of the interview process?
Great question. So at this point, you're already bought in, right? So if you're a Costco customer, you've paid for your stuff and now you encountered the most resistance on a Saturday. This is your big line of people waiting to get their receipts checked. And basically, you just have no choice. You got the sunk cost, you've already paid for your stuff. You've already spent the time walking through the store, picking out your items, and then checking out. At this point, you're totally bought in. And I think the idea here is that this is where you can really dive into the most friction in the interview process. This is where we want to answer the tough questions. This is where the candidate sees the exit, right? They can see the exit. They're almost to where they want to go and they recognize, all right, I can get through this level of pain. But I will say, one of the other things we could take from Costco is that you can see the exit when you get in that line. So if you're going to ask a candidate to endure a high friction interview process at the end, if you do it, you want to make sure that they understand that they can see the exit as they're engaged in whatever this high friction encounter is. If that's a big panel interview, which we do not recommend, or maybe it's a technical assessment amongst some peers. These are areas where we want to make it clear that there's going to be a payoff at the end of the road.
Got it. So, just like Costco's final receipt check, the last stage of the interview process involves the most scrutiny, but candidates are already committed and can see the finish line. They are willing to endure the final tough questions or assessments because they know it's almost over and the reward is within reach. Ensuring candidates can see the exit or the end goal helps them stay motivated through this high friction part of the process. That's a really insightful analogy, Alex. Do you have any final thoughts or tips for our listeners on applying this framework to their recruiting processes?
I think we really covered some great ground today. Maybe that we want to remember that we're not so different from our candidates. So maybe we ask ourselves, would I wait in this line?
That's a great point, Alex. Always considering the candidate's perspective can truly refine the process. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in today. We hope you found this discussion on how Costco's customer experience can influence your interview process insightful. As always, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, let us know. Until next time.